Book of Heaven, Volume 7. 3 January to 13 March 1907. Page 57 to 63. January 3, 1907. True trust reproduces divine life in the soul. Continuing in my usual state, I saw blessed Jesus for just a little, and he told me, "My daughter, if one fears much, it is a sign that she relies much on herself, because in noticing nothing but weaknesses and miseries within herself, she naturally and justly fears. On the other hand, if one fears nothing, it is a sign that she relies on God, because by relying on God, her miseries and weaknesses are dissolved in God, and as she feels invested by the divine being, it is no longer she who operates, but God within her. So, what can she fear? Therefore, true trust reproduces divine life in the soul." January 5, 1907. True sanctity consists of receiving anything that may happen to us as a specialty of divine love. Having read about a soul who had scruples about everything, and who feared that everything might be sin, I was thinking to myself, and I? How lax I am! I too would like to think that everything may be sin so as to be more attentive not to offend the Lord. Then, when blessed Jesus came, he told me, "My daughter, this is nonsense," and the soul remains stuck on the path of sanctity, while true and solid sanctity consists of receiving anything which may happen to her or which she may be doing, be it even the most indifferent thing, as a specialty of divine love, just as it would be if she found a food enjoyable or disgusting. A specialty of love in the enjoyment, thinking that it is Jesus that produces that enjoyment in the food, and that he loves her to the point of giving her pleasure even in material things. A specialty of love in the disgust, thinking that he loves her so much as to produce that disgust for her in order to make her similar to himself in mortification, giving her, himself, a little coin that she can offer to him. A specialty of divine love if she is humiliated, if she is exalted, if she is healthy, if she is infirm, if she is poor or rich. A specialty of love her breathing, her sight, her speech, everything, everything. And just as she must receive everything as a specialty of divine love, she must give everything back to God as a special love of hers. So, she must receive the wave of the love of God, and must give to God the wave of her love. Oh, what a sanctifying bath is this wave of love! It purifies her, it sanctifies her, it makes her advance without her realizing it. It is a life more of heaven than of earth. This is what I want from you. Sin, and the thought of sin, must not exist in you. January 10, 1907. The evil of one's own taste. As I was in my usual state, blessed Jesus came for just a little, and he told me, "My daughter, the attachment of creatures to their own tastes is such that I am forced to contain my gifts within myself." In fact, instead of becoming attached to the donor, they become attached to my gifts, idolatrizing my gifts to the offense of the donor. So, if they find their own taste, they act, or rather, they do not, they just satisfy their taste. If there is no taste, they do nothing. So, one's own taste forms a second life in the creatures. But, miserable ones, they do not know that where one's own taste is present, the divine taste can hardly be, even in the very holy things. So, in receiving my gifts, graces and favors, she must not appropriate them as her own things, making of them a taste for herself, but must keep them as divine tastes, using them in order to love the Lord more, and being ready to sacrifice them to that very love. January 13, 1907. Jesus wanted to suffer in his humanity in order to redo the human nature. Continuing in my usual state, I saw my blessed Jesus flashing by, and he told me, "My daughter, how much I love souls." Listen. The human nature was corrupted, humiliated, without hope of glory and of resurgence, and I wanted to suffer all humiliations in my humanity. In a special way, I wanted to be stripped, scourged, and let my flesh fall off in shreds under the scourges, almost undoing my humanity, in order to redo the humanity of creatures, and to make it rise again full of life, of honor and of glory to eternal life. What more could I do which I have not done? January 20, 1907. The greatest sanctity is to live in the divine will. Having read the lives of two female saints, one who aspired so much to suffering, and the other who aspired so much to be little, I was thinking in my interior about which one of the two it would be better to imitate, and unable to make up my mind, I felt as though hampered. So, in order to be free and to think only about loving him, I said to myself, I want to aspire to nothing but to love him and to fulfill his holy will perfectly. At that moment, the Lord told me in my interior, and it is here that I want you, in my will. Until the grain of wheat is buried in the earth and dies completely, it cannot rise again to new life and multiply itself, giving life to other grains. In the same way, until the soul is buried in my will, to the point of dying completely by dissolving all of her will within mine, she cannot rise again to new divine life through the rising of all the virtues of Christ, which contain true sanctity. Therefore, let my will be the seal which seals your interior and exterior, and once my will has risen completely within you, you will find true love, and this is the greatest of all the other sanctities to which one can aspire. January 21, 1907. One who always loves Jesus cannot displease him. Finding myself in my usual state, I was saying in my interior, Lord, let it be that I may be all yours and that I may be always, always with you, and that I may never separate from you. However, while I am with you, do not permit that I may be a goad that embitters you, that I may bother you, that I may displease you, but that I may be a goad that is present in you to sustain you when you are tired or oppressed, that consoles you when you are bothered by the other creatures. While I was saying this, blessed Jesus told me, my daughter, one who is in the continuous attitude of loving me is always with me, and can never be a goad that gives me bother, but a goad that sustains me, that relieves me, that soothes me. In fact, true love has this as its own. It renders the beloved content. Besides, one who always loves me can never displease me, because love absorbs the whole person. At the most, there might be little things, and the soul herself does not even realize that she may displease me, but love itself takes on the commitment to purify her, so that I may always find my delights in her. January 25, 1907. Chastisements. She sees cities deserted. I am going through most bitter days because of the almost continuous privations of blessed Jesus. At the most, he makes himself seen in passing and like a flash, and immediately he hides so very deep within my interior that I cannot even catch sight of him, and always in silence. So, when I saw him after much struggling, and he was all embittered and oppressed, I said to him, "But, tell me at least, what is it that makes you suffer so much?" And he, unwilling, only to content me, told me, "Ah, my daughter, you do not know what must happen. If I told you, you would break my indignation, and I would not do what I have to do. This is why I keep silent. So, calm yourself about the way I act with you in this period of time. But, courage, it will be so very bitter for you, but do it as an athlete, as a generous one, always living, but as though dead, in my will, without even crying." Having said this, he hid deeper within my interior, leaving me as though petrified, without even being able to cry for his privation. Now, to obey, I write that even before the month of January, until now, I do nothing but find myself outside of myself. It may also be a dream, but I seem to see places in desolation, cities deserted, entire streets with the houses closed, with no one walking along them, and dead people. My fright at seeing these things is such as to render me as though dazed, and I would like to imitate my good Jesus by remaining, I too, taciturn and silent. Why this, I am unable to say, because my light Jesus does not tell me anything. I wrote this only to obey. Deo gratias. February 20, 1907. Lack of correspondence to grace. It continues with him always in silence, in passing and like a flash. I spend my days in bitterness and as though dazed. It is as if my whole interior had been struck by a thunderbolt, without being able to move either forward or backward. I myself am unable to say what has happened in my interior. I believe it is better to keep silent than to speak about it. Then, this morning, he came for just a little, and told me, "My daughter, one who does not correspond to my grace lives like those birds which live by thievery. In the same way, the soul does nothing but live by thievery. She steals my grace, she lives and does not recognize me, and she even offends me." And he disappeared like a flash, leaving me more dazed than before. March 2, 1907. There is nothing that equals suffering willingly. Continuing in my usual state, and having learned that almost the entire town was with the influenza, and that in other places people were dying, I was praying our Lord that He would be so benign as to spare so many victims, and that He would make me suffer to spare them, since nowadays I suffer little or nothing, for He has taken this also away from me. While I was saying this, He told me in my interior, "My daughter, it was said about me, that it was necessary that one would die to save the whole people. It was a truth, but at that time it was not understood. In the same way, in all times it is necessary that there be one who suffers to spare the others, and this one, in order to be accepted, must offer himself voluntarily, and only for love of God and of his neighbor, to suffer himself in order to spare all others. And the suffering of this one cannot be equaled by the suffering of all the others put together. There is no value that matches it. Do you think that the void of your suffering is nothing? Yet, it is not a complete void, and if I suspend you completely, where will the peoples end up? Woe, woe, things do not end here." March 13, 1907. Luisa prays to Jesus for her mother, that she may not go to purgatory after her death. It continues almost always in the same way. At the most, he makes himself seen in silence. In these last days, when he made himself seen, he would caress me and kiss me, and since my mama was sick, he made me understand that he would take her. I would say to him, "My Lord, you want her, and I give her to you as gift before you take her. I do not want to wait until you take her, without giving her to you before. But I want from you the recompense for the gift I give you, giving me as reward your taking her straight to paradise, without letting her touch purgatory, at the cost of making me suffer the purgatory that Mama should have." And blessed Jesus would say to me, "My daughter, let me do." Returning to pray him again, I would say, "But, my sweet love, who will have the heart to see my Mama suffer in purgatory, she who suffered so much, and who cried so much because of me?" It is the weight of gratitude that pushes me, that urges me, and gives me strength. As for all other things, do whatever you want, but in this, no, I do not give up. You will content me and will do what I want. And he, my beloved, do not render yourself too importunate. You are truly untiring, and by being untiring, you force me to content you. However, he would not give me a definitive answer. I would return to storm him and would cry like a child, and praying him again, I kept offering what he suffered in his passion, minute by minute, hour by hour, applying it to the soul of my mother, that she might be purged and embellished, and I might obtain my intent. And he would add, drying my tears, "But, my dear beloved one, do not cry, you know that I love you, can I not content you? See, with the continuous offering of my passion, as you let nothing escape you of what I suffered for your mother, her soul is inside an immense sea, and this sea washes her, embellishes her, enriches her, inundates her with light. And to assure you that I will content you, when your mother dies you will be surprised by a fire and will feel burned." I remained content, but not certain, because he had not yet told me whether he would take her straight to paradise.